I thought you were supposed to wish on shooting stars.
But I did.
But we only saw one.
But you see a lot of them up here at night.
What?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them out at night. You don't see them in town. That's why I come up here. Oh, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, you can see them better up here.
I know what you mean.
No, that's not what you think, Jenny.
My name is Jane. Just Jane.
Behind the wholesome charm of Mayberry, something dark was buried. A secret that never made it to the screen. Why did one of television's most beloved actresses die with so many questions unanswered? And why did Andy Griffith keep something hidden until the very end? This isn't the story you were told. It is the one they never wanted you to know. There was love, there was betrayal, and in the end, there was tragedy. What really happened to Aneta Corsaut, and did Andy Griffith have to do with it? Well, you are about to find out. It's the early 1960s, and America is falling in love with a sleepy little town called Mayberry. Every week, millions of viewers tune in to The Andy Griffith Show for a slice of small-town peace, a few laughs, and, of course, Sheriff Andy Taylor's warm charm. But behind those black and white smiles and wholesome storylines, there was something much more interesting unfolding. Aneta Corsaut, the poised, intelligent brunette who played Helen Crump, the schoolteacher, slowly stole Andy Taylor's heart on screen and may have been doing the same thing off-screen too. Aneta wasn't just any actress, but it wasn't until she stepped onto the set of The Andy Griffith Show in 1963 that she would become a household name. Aneta joined the show as Helen Crump during season 3, and fans couldn't get enough of her. She had this quiet strength, a graceful confidence that perfectly matched Andy's easygoing nature. On screen, their chemistry was magnetic, but guess what? That spark wasn't all acting. Rumors started swirling fast, and it didn't take long for the whispers to turn into full-blown buzz that Aneta and Andy were actually involved in real life. Stay with me, because what comes next is even deeper. The secret affair with Andy Griffith. Fans knew them as Sheriff Andy Taylor and schoolteacher Helen Crump, the perfectly wholesome couple from America's favorite small town. But what most didn't realize was that their chemistry didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. In fact, it was just getting started. It didn't take a detective to notice something was going on between them, because the way Andy looked at Aneta in scenes, the way she'd smile back just a second too long, it was subtle, but it was there. And you can't fake that kind of tension. Their characters fell in love slowly, over seasons, from professional acquaintances to partners in parenting little Opie. But the truth was, the connection was already very real before the writers even gave them a first on-screen kiss. Off-screen, Andy and Aneta were falling for each other. It wasn't just rumors either. People who worked on the show knew, cast and crew saw the long private conversations, the lingering glances, the quiet moments between takes. They weren't sneaking off into trailers like some Hollywood scandals, but there was definitely more than just rehearsing happening when those two spent time alone. What made it all so complicated was the fact that Andy Griffith was married. While America saw him as the morally upright sheriff, at home he had a wife, Barbara Griffith, whom he had married in 1949. She was actually part of the show early on, helping out behind the scenes, and their son was even briefly on the series. But as the show took off, the marriage reportedly began to strain, and Aneta Corsaut entered the picture right in the middle of that. Now, we're not here to judge, because Hollywood relationships are complicated. They always have been. But what's fascinating is how openly this all seemed to play out behind closed doors. People who worked on the show weren't shocked. They talked, they noticed. Some felt awkward, especially Don Knotts, who played Barney Fife. Multiple sources claimed Don always felt a little uncomfortable around Aneta. Maybe it was the tension, maybe it was loyalty to Barbara, or maybe he just didn't like how different the energy on set felt when she was around. Whatever the reason, it definitely changed the vibe behind the scenes. Griffith was known to be charming, charismatic, and warm with fans. However, he also had a temper. He was intense, and he was known to be serious and sometimes demanding on set. So when it came to Aneta, he wasn't casual. He fell hard and deep. Some biographers and gossip publications even claimed he proposed to her not once, but reportedly multiple times, and she said no every time. However, this was never confirmed by either Griffith or Aneta. Aneta wasn't the type to jump into marriage. In fact, she never married at all. Some say she just wasn't built for the traditional Hollywood wife role, while others believed she saw Andy's marriage unravel and didn't want to be the woman on the other end of it. Or maybe she knew something we didn't, that relationships in the spotlight rarely survive, and whatever they had was better left undefined. Let's clear something up real quick. Their relationship wasn't just physical, it was emotional, it was real, and it lasted a long time even after the Andy Griffith show ended. What's wild is how little the general public really knew about all of this. Fans at the time were living in a pre-TMZ world where there was no internet, no constant social media feed dragging every on-set romance into the spotlight. So most people believed the fiction that Andy and Helens' love was just a beautiful part of the story, and in a way, that's what made it all work. The line between character and actor was blurry enough to let the myth survive, but for the people who were there, who saw the relationship develop in real time, this was a love story that was as real as it was messy. It complicated the working environment, leaving some cast members confused on where to stand, and others just tried to stay out of it. What drove Aneta to turn down love, fame, and even marriage? Was it fear, foresight, or something far more complicated? Her beginnings may hold the answers you never saw coming. Aneta Corsaut's journey, from small-town roots to a breakout role in Mayberry. Aneta Corsaut's story didn't start in Hollywood. It began in the heart of America, Hutchinson, Kansas, where she was born in 1933. Raised in a modest Midwestern home, Aneta wasn't born into glitz or privilege. She was just a small-town girl with big dreams and a sharp intellect to match. From a young age, she had a quiet magnetism. She was observant, intelligent, and deeply curious. Quickly, that curiosity turned into a fascination with the world of performance, and it was clear to those around her that she had a spark. While others might have been content staying in Kansas, Aneta wanted more. She had her eyes set on the stage, and she wasn't going to wait around for someone to discover her. She headed to Northwestern University to study drama, one of the best schools in the country for aspiring performers. But she didn't just coast through. She studied alongside future stars, soaking up everything she could. But then, Hollywood wasn't necessarily the goal. Aneta was serious about the craft, and she wasn't looking for shortcuts. After Northwestern, she took it a step further and picked up courses at UCLA, where she kept sharpening her skills and planting herself right in the heart of the entertainment industry. Unlike many of her peers, she wasn't hustling to land just any role. She was deliberate. She knew the value of patience and preparation, and she made sure she was ready before stepping into the spotlight. Her big break came in a genre that nobody really expected: horror. In 1958, Aneta made her film debut in The Blob, a cult classic that paired her with none other than Steve McQueen. The movie itself was low budget and a little campy, but it worked. And more importantly, it gave Aneta her first real taste of Hollywood. She played the role of Jane Martin, the sweet, brave teenage girl who goes head-to-head with an alien goo. It wasn't a glamorous part, but her performance stood out. She wasn't the typical scream queen. There was intelligence in her eyes and a grounded energy that made people pay attention. Even in a film about a deadly blob devouring a town, Aneta had a presence, and Hollywood noticed. From there, she made a series of smart, calculated moves. She didn't chase the fame train, but she also didn't disappear. Throughout the late 50s and early 60s, she made the rounds on television, scoring guest roles in shows like Death Valley Days, Gunsmoke, and Bonanza. These weren't just filler gigs, they were proving grounds, and Aneta proved herself over and over again. Directors loved working with her because she was easy to direct, always prepared, and had a quiet professionalism that stood out in an industry filled with big egos and bigger personalities. Then 1963 came, and with it, the role that would change everything. Aneta Corsaut joined The Andy Griffith Show. Now, here's what's interesting. Initially, Helen Crump was originally meant to be a one-time character. just a guest role, but Aneta's chemistry with Andy Griffith was undeniable. Their first scenes together sparked something so real and warm that the producers knew they had struck gold. Instead of disappearing after one episode, Helen Crump became a series regular, and eventually the love interest of Sheriff Andy Taylor. Aneta didn't play Helen like just another love interest. She brought strength, intelligence, and a little bite to the character. In a show filled with small-town charm and laid-back storytelling, Helen was sharp, articulate, and quietly commanding. Viewers loved her. She wasn't there to be rescued. She held her own, challenged Andy, and gave depth to what could have been a flat romance. Behind the scenes, the spark she shared with Andy wasn't just good acting, and that was how the rumor mill began churning, but at the time, fans were mostly just invested in the on-screen magic, and Aneta delivered that in spades. What's important to note here is that Aneta's rise to fame didn't come from being loud or flashy. She didn't have a scandalous past or a controversial debut. She made it because she was really good. And in an era when women on television were often boxed into tired stereotypes, she brought something different. She had poise, independence, sense of authenticity that audiences could feel through the screen. Her ascent to television fame through The Andy Griffith Show wasn't meteoric. It was methodical. She earned her place in Mayberry, and once she was there, she became an essential part of what made the show work. Helen Crump wasn't just Andy's girlfriend. She was part of the town's fabric, and Aneta made sure she stayed true to herself while playing the role. By the mid-1960s, Aneta Corsaut had gone from a drama student in Kansas to a household name on one of the most beloved shows in American television. But unlike so many others who found quick fame and let it burn them out, she played the long game. With grace, talent, and a sense of quiet confidence, Aneta Corsaut became unforgettable. She became a part of Mayberry's charm. But what happened after the show ended? Aneta's next chapter wasn't just unexpected. It revealed a bond with Andy Griffith that refused to fade with the credits. Life after Mayberry. After The Andy Griffith Show faded into reruns and nostalgia, most of the cast went their separate ways. Don Knotts dove into films and comedy. Andy Griffith began reshaping his image for the next generation of viewers, and Aneta Corsaut stepped into the shadows on her own terms. Aneta never chased fame. She never wanted to be the it girl or headline the tabloids, but that doesn't mean she faded into obscurity. In fact, her story after Mayberry is a quiet reminder that not every Hollywood journey has to be loud to be meaningful. Let's start with the most intriguing part. Years later, long after Mayberry was just a fond memory, Andy brought her back into his orbit on his courtroom drama, Matlock. And it wasn't a one-time appearance. Aneta popped up multiple times across the show's 9 seasons, often playing strong, opinionated women, which was exactly the kind of roles she was known for. Of course, that old spark was still there. Their scenes together on Matlock weren't romantic, but you could feel the comfort, the ease, the history. It was like two people who'd known each other for decades, which by that point they had. It says a lot that Andy kept making space for her in his work, because not everyone gets invited back into a television icon's inner circle like that. These weren't big, flashy roles, but they were thoughtful, respectful nods to someone who clearly mattered. You can almost imagine the unspoken agreement between them. No drama, no headlines, just good work and quiet loyalty. Outside of Matlock, Aneta stayed active in television, guest starring on some of the biggest shows of the 70s and 80s. She made an appearance on Gunsmoke, stepped into a mystery with Columbo, and even showed up in Emergency, playing a range of characters that proved she wasn't just Helen Crump, but she had real acting chops. Whether it was playing a worried mother, a no-nonsense nurse, or a sharp-tongued witness, she had this ability to bring grounded energy to any scene. Even with a resume like that, Aneta Corsaut never became a celebrity in the traditional sense. She wasn't walking red carpets or giving exclusive interviews to gossip magazines. She didn't live in the tabloids. In fact, She kept her personal life almost completely off the radar. She was never married. She never had children. There were no public romances, no scandals, no exposés, just radio silence, and that silence sparked endless speculation. Some say she was heartbroken over Andy, that even though she rejected his proposals, he was the one true love of her life, and nothing ever quite measured up after him. Others believe she simply chose a different path, one that wasn't defined by a partner or kids. Maybe, after years in the public eye, she wanted to be her own person, free of expectations. Regardless of the reason, she kept her life guarded, tucked away from the cameras and the noise. She was a private woman in an industry built on exposure, and that was part of what makes her so intriguing. She let her work speak for itself. She was selective, deliberate, and totally in control of her image, which is kind of ironic, considering she played a character who was always caught up in someone else's storyline. But perhaps the most haunting part of her post-Mayberry story is how quietly it all ended. Beneath that quiet life and carefully guarded privacy was a final chapter no one was prepared for, one marked by pain, secrecy, and a goodbye that stunned everyone. The tragic death of Aneta Corsaut. It was early November 1995, just days after celebrating what should have been a quiet and joyful 62nd birthday. Aneta passed away, and it wasn't sudden, because she had been fighting a battle most of the world didn't even know about. A private war against cancer, and in true Aneta fashion, she kept the details close to her chest. No press statements, no public cries for sympathy, just quiet strength, the same kind she brought to every role she ever played. While most of the world remembered her as Helen Crump, the calm, intelligent schoolteacher from The Andy Griffith Show, those closest to her saw something deeper. A woman who lived her life on her own terms and chose dignity even when the end was approaching. Cancer didn't make a spectacle of her because Aneta didn't let it. Even as her health deteriorated, many people did not know how bad things had gotten, though some fans noticed she'd disappeared from television. Her appearances had become sparse, but nobody expected the worst. So when news broke that she had died on November 6, 1995, it came as a shock, not just because of her age, but because she had managed to keep such a heavy battle almost entirely hidden. She died in Studio City, California, quiet, peaceful, and just 3 days after her birthday. Aneta was laid to rest at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery, a modest resting place tucked in the heart of North Hollywood, with no giant fanfare, no Hollywood circus, just a simple farewell for a woman who had lived with grace and intention. While her death was private, the reaction afterward revealed just how deeply she was loved. Fans from all over the country, people who had grown up watching her on their living room televisions, were heartbroken. The ones who had watched Helen Crump challenge Andy Taylor with a sly smile and sharp wit were suddenly confronted with the fact that she was gone, and it hurt more than expected. Tributes began to pour in. Co-stars, producers, old friends. They didn't all go public, but in interviews that followed, you could hear it in their voices. Andy Griffith, in particular, was said to be especially shaken. Though he never made any big emotional statements, those who knew him said her death hit him hard. After all, this wasn't just a former co-star. This was a woman he had loved, a woman he had once wanted to marry, a woman who had left a lasting impression on every chapter of his life. There's even been speculation and whispers among industry insiders that Andy kept a photo of her on his desk for years after she passed. And whether that's true or not, one thing is for sure. Aneta Corsaut wasn't just a footnote in his career, he was a cornerstone. The media, however, didn't exactly give her the red carpet treatment in death. There were no major magazine covers, no hour-long television specials. In fact, most major outlets gave her just a few paragraphs, a short obituary, a passing mention in the entertainment section. It was as if Hollywood had forgotten her, while the audience still remembered every word she'd ever spoken in that calm, Midwestern voice. And maybe that's what makes her story so tragic. She was talented, respected, and for a time, a key figure in one of the most beloved shows in American television history. but because she chose to live quietly, to keep her private life out of the headlines, she was never granted the grand farewell so many of her peers received. Her death didn't trend, it didn't dominate the news cycle, but it meant something to those who grew up with her face on their screens. And that's the thing about Aneta Corsaut. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, and clearly, she didn't need to be. Her presence was strong without being overbearing. Her legacy isn't one of awards or scandals, but of genuine connection with her roles, her co-stars, and her audience. Even today, when reruns of The Andy Griffith Show air, fans still light up when Helen Crump walks into the classroom. There's a softness in her voice, a strength in her stare, and a calm intelligence that made her unforgettable. That's the power of a performance that comes from the heart. And though Aneta Corsaut may not have gotten the Hollywood ending some stars crave, she got something else, something more rare. She was remembered with love. But just when you think Helen Crump was merely a footnote in television history, the next chapter proves she was actually a blueprint for every smart, no-nonsense woman who followed. Helen Crump, redefining the role of women in classic television. Aneta Corsaut played Helen with nuance. She wasn't trying to be sexy or loud. She brought intelligence to the screen without making it a spectacle. She made smart look cool. And for so many young girls and women watching, Helen was a breath of fresh air. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was just being herself. Now, we're not saying Helen Crump single-handedly reinvented television's portrayal of women, but let's give credit where credit's due. Long before shows like The Mary Tyler Moore Show or Murphy Brown gave us fully developed female leads with careers and complex personalities, Helen was laying the groundwork, and she was doing it with less screen time and way fewer monologues. Culturally, Helen Crump became a quiet symbol of possibility. She showed that women didn't have to choose between love and self-respect, that being smart didn't make you cold, that you could be part of a love story without being absorbed by it. Think about it. Her relationship with Andy Taylor was one of mutual respect. She challenged him, held her own, and wasn't afraid to walk away if something didn't feel right. That kind of dynamic we still don't see enough of on television, and fans noticed. Even decades after The Andy Griffith Show wrapped, Helen Crump remains one of the most remembered and beloved characters from the series. People still post about her online, still bring her up at fan conventions, still feel something when she walks into that Mayberry classroom ready to put Barney Fife in his place. It's not just nostalgia, it's recognition. Helen represented a type of woman many had rarely seen on television, and that impact stuck. Even today, you'll find fan threads and comment sections filled with love for Helen. People remember her calm demeanor, her poise, her ability to deliver a sharp line without raising her voice. She had a presence, a steadiness. In a show built around small-town charm and simple storytelling, she gave the audience something real. And that realness is why she still matters. Helen Crump didn't just elevate the show. She gave Andy Griffith's character new layers. Their interactions were some of the richest in the series. When Helen was around, Andy wasn't just a sheriff. He was a man trying to navigate a relationship with someone who wouldn't let him get away with lazy answers. That dynamic, that subtle push and pull, made their scenes some of the best in the show. Aneta Corsaut brought all of this to life with incredible grace. She never overshadowed the cast, but she didn't fade into the background either. She knew how to command a scene with stillness and precision, and that was rare. That's not just acting, that's artistry. So here we are, decades later, still talking about Helen Crump, still rewatching those episodes and smiling when she appears, because she wasn't just a love interest. She was a fully realized character in a time when most women on television weren't given that kind of depth. And that's her legacy. Helen Crump may have started out as a one-episode character, but she ended up as a quietly revolutionary figure in television history. And as long as the Andy Griffith Show keeps airing, as long as fans keep remembering her with admiration and love, that legacy isn't going anywhere. Because Helen wasn't just part of Mayberry, she was part of what made it meaningful. What if that on-screen magic wasn't entirely scripted? What if behind Helen's knowing smile was a real love story unfolding in secret? Unraveling the mystery. Facts versus fiction. For decades, fans of The Andy Griffith Show have whispered about the real relationship between Andy Griffith and Aneta Corsaut. On screen, they played the lovable sheriff and the principled schoolteacher, navigating small-town romance in the idyllic world of Mayberry. But off-screen is where things get murky, tangled in rumors, subtle glances, and stories passed around like whispered secrets in a Hollywood diner booth. The question remains, did Andy and Aneta really have a love affair? Or was it all just wishful thinking, fuel for fan fiction dressed up as fact? Let's rewind the reel for a second. The chemistry between Andy and Aneta was undeniable. Even the most casual viewer could sense it. There was a certain warmth in their scenes, something deeper than just two actors running lines. Their banter never felt forced, their body language often intimate, and the way they looked at each other, let's just say, it didn't always feel like acting. Many people close to the production have hinted that their connection extended beyond the script. Crew members, writers, even a few guest stars have gone on record, some directly, others more cryptically, to acknowledge that there was something real going on between Andy and Aneta during the show's run. It wasn't just flirting on set, but private dinners, hushed conversations behind trailers, and a closeness that even Don Knotts once reportedly described as too familiar to be professional. However, when it comes to evidence of their affair, it is suggestive. Nothing but strong body language, on-set whispers, multiple cast and crew confirmations. And of course, Andy's decision to bring Aneta back years later for Matlock, long after the Mayberry chapter had closed. So it is believed what they shared was not just professional, but personal as well. Here's where it gets tricky, because there's another side to the story, a quieter, more skeptical version. Some biographies of Andy Griffith have argued that the affair is overblown, a product of fan obsession and Hollywood gossip culture. They point out that there's no hard proof, no love letters, no photos, no dramatic divorce revelations, just innuendo and memory, both of which can get fuzzy over time. One biographer even suggested that Andy and Aneta had a close bond, yes, but it was rooted more in mutual respect and artistic compatibility than romance. And let's not forget Aneta herself. She never spoke publicly about Andy. She never gave a tell-all interview, never tried to cash in on their history. It's either a sign of privacy or protection, depending on who you ask. Skeptics also raise valid questions like, if the affair was real and so significant, why didn't it leave a clearer trail? Why did Aneta never marry? Why didn't Andy, who eventually divorced Barbara, ever make a public move toward Aneta? If they were really soulmates, why didn't they end up together? These are questions that don't have easy answers. Maybe it was timing, maybe it was loyalty, maybe the pressure of going public was too risky for both of them. Or maybe the whole thing was a beautifully believable story that lived entirely in the space between cut and action. In the end, here's what we do know. Andy Griffith and Aneta Corsaut shared something. Whether it was a passionate love affair or a deep, platonic bond wrapped in on-screen magic, it left a mark not just on them, but on millions of fans. It's the kind of relationship that keeps people guessing, because it lives in the gray area, not quite confirmed but not entirely denied either. So, was there really an affair? The truth is, it depends on who you ask and what you choose to believe, but one thing is for sure. Whatever happened behind the scenes in Mayberry, it created a legacy that fans still talk about to this day. Was Aneta Corsaut, the unsung heart of Mayberry, overlooked in a world that often favors noise over nuance? Why did she turn down the man who reportedly proposed more than once? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you enjoyed this video, click on the next video on your screen.